All right, hello everyone. Today we have Martin, who is currently a student at Washington University in St. Louis. And Martin, can you go ahead and please introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Martin. I'm going to be a rising junior at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm studying marketing as my major, and I'm minoring in international business and Korean language and culture.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so Martin, obviously, within that introduction, you mentioned how you're studying marketing, and you have a really diverse minor choices. So I was wondering if you can go in depth as to why you chose those majors or minor combinations.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest challenges going into college was just really figuring out like what I wanted to do. I think back in high school, there was like certain subjects I liked. Like I was like I really liked taking French back in high school. I liked my comparative government class in senior year. That was pretty interesting, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I think like basically the first semester of my freshman year, I was just kind of like I knew I was interested in something social sciencey. So I was like, you know what, let me take a linguistics class, let me take like an international relations class, let me take an American politics class. I was thinking about doing math for a very, very hot second. And then I realized like all the social science classes were interesting, but one thing I didn't really like tap into quite yet was kind of like business, which is kind of like I feel like a very applicable way of using social sciences. So I took like a business class my second semester and I loved it. I feel like it combined a lot of like what I was learning from my first semester. And I was like, let me go down with this and see what I like about it. One of my classes I took was kind of like a sampler platter of like all the business majors that we have in my school. And so we got like intro to finance, intro to accounting, supply chain management. But the one thing that really clicked with me was like marketing. I've always loved marketing, like back in high school, like whenever we did like PR things and stuff like that. So then I was decided to go down that path. I took a marketing class this semester, absolutely loved it. I'm thinking of taking like two or three more like marketing like elective classes next semester. So that's where like my major came from. I know we mentioned earlier like about like my minors. So like I'm minoring in international business in Korean language and culture, and I feel like where my minors came from was just kind of based off of like my like just kind of based off of interest. Wasn't like it was just kind of like, oh, I was interested in this. I took one or two classes from it and absolutely like fell in love with it. And I was like realized that like if I just took a couple more classes, it made a minor.
Uh,
I actually I went to Israel last summer
oh
with my
wow.
school. Basically we have this like summer program in Israel because I think our school has some type of like relationships with like this what was the school's name? The university in Herzliya, and
Oh,
it's right next to what's it called, Tel Aviv.
yeah,
Um,
Tel Aviv.
so like it was a class about entrepreneurship, and like I learned about it while I was on campus, loved it. So I decided to go, and basically was just talking about like entrepreneurship in Israel because it turns out that like in terms of like the amount of startups in countries, like I think the first is like US, second is China, I think, and then third is Israel. Like literally a country the size of New Jersey has
Yeah.
like most startups like in like in terms like in third in the world. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But basically that made me really interested in like understanding like international business. So that's where that minor came from. Where my Korean language and culture minor came from is because one of my friends recommended me this K-drama. It's called
Oh,
Sky Castle.
uh-huh.
It's so good. I watched it like last summer, fell in love with it. I was like, whoa, this is so good. It was like my first K-drama ever. And then I
Uh-huh.
was like super interested in like the language because like from my understanding, like back then was like it was the grammatical structure is like subject, object, verb rather than like subject, verb, object in like English language or like Mandarin, for example. So then I decided to take like a class on it, like a language class this semester. Loved it. And then like my professor was like, you should consider minoring in it. And it turns out it would just be a couple more classes, would also get rid of some of my GEs as well. And I was like, oh my God, let's do it. So that's where I come from.
That's awesome. No, I love it because I think the great thing about talking with you is how passionate obviously you are about it. And I think that's something that's huge in college because, being passionate about what you want to study because, you know, not necessarily I would say makes college a lot easier, but it makes it a lot more enjoyable. Like even if it's difficult, you still enjoy studying it and that's why you continue with it. And I guess, just really fast, I just want to follow up something you mentioned obviously with majors, how you didn't really find a specific like interest in high school. You had a lot of great interests, in social sciences or whatnot, and then you eventually found that interest during your time in college. And I guess to all the students out there who who are definitely unsure of what they want to do, what would you tell them? Like, would you say it's okay to not have something like concrete in high school and then waiting to find that in college?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like retweet what you just said. I think like basically like if you don't know, like I feel like when I was like just in high school in general, like you mentioned, like I wasn't too sure exactly what I wanted to do. Like I have had a lot of interest in a lot of different places, but I think like by like my senior year, I know like a lot of people knew what they wanted to do. Like a lot of people, it's like I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, for example. And like I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I like just know like if you're out there and like you don't know exactly what you want to do, like that's totally fine. There's so many other people like that. And like I know like a lot of my friends who have like go into like college, like a lot of my the first year my freshman friends that I met, like they went out there with saying like I want to be a doctor, and then now like they're like studying English, or like they're doing something completely different, or like it's okay to pivot. And I think pivoting is like it makes things a lot more interesting as well. So if you don't know what you want to do, like it's totally fine. Like I'm with you 100%.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I definitely think it's something to mention because I feel like a lot of people are pressured into thinking they have to have something figured out in high school so that when they go into college, like they kind of get their life in order. But I like with you, I would argue that not everyone has everything set right off the bat. It would take time to kind of develop that. So yeah, I definitely love how you had this experience of not really having such a cohesive idea, but then once you got into college, clearly it shows within your passion of just talking about it that it worked out for the better. So yeah, awesome. And obviously, going a little bit more into college, specifically you're talking about Washington University in St. Louis. So I guess why that university? Why go out of state to Washington? Just like what was your decision process of choosing that school?
Yeah, I always talk to this with my like back then when like I think in like senior year of high school, I was talking to my friends about it. In the beginning, it was like I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like I mentioned like multiple times right now. But ultimately it came down to like three main reasons. Like I've heard that this school was like more it was more collaborative than competitive, and I definitely like collaborative vibes. So that was one main reason. Like another reason was because I know that at Washington University, like changing your majors or taking classes across different schools, like whether you want to take classes in engineering school, business school, design school, or arts and sciences, like it's really fluid. Like you can change your mind, and that was really important to me because I changed my mind a lot. And then lastly is because like I really wanted to get out of state because number one, I wanted to like explore something different. Like I've lived in California my entire life, in Southern California, and I wanted something a little bit different. My family all wanted me to stay back and like stay in California. Like everyone else in my family had always stayed in California, so like going out of state was something different. But something that one of the reasons why I also wanted to go out of state was because I wanted seasons. Like summer the
Yeah,
entire year is not exactly really fun,
I feel you.
but I think like at WashU, like basically like there's definitely four seasons, and I realize that sometimes there's days where there's four seasons in a day. Like it changes a lot, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
No, no, I would agree with you on that one. Even though I stayed in California, I agree that having summer pretty much all 12 months of the year um gets kind of boring after a while. But yeah, no, definitely. And I guess like you mentioned, you went out of state and a lot of your family members wanted you to stay in state. So, did you really have any major fears and concerns about going out of state, or what worried about like any possible like roadblocks you might have when going into college?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like back then when like I was a senior, like I was like, you know what? Going out of state is just like a different location and there's different weather and but then I think I didn't realize like how like I don't think like it was a like it I don't think it made a big deal in terms of like my decision making and except like I wanted to go out of state. But I think like after I was like in Missouri, at WashU, and like I wasn't no longer in California, like there was certain things about like the environment that was just a little bit different from California. For example, like LA, or like just like LA, Los Angeles, like it's a big city. Like there's
Yeah.
traffic for like hours and hours and hours. But then like if you go out from the international airport, or like the big airport where most people fly into in Missouri, like you go out, there's literally like traffic does not exist there. Like I've driven there like a couple times. Like we have this thing on our campus called car share where Enterprise, what's it called? And I think it's called Enterprise. The
Yeah,
car
like those car sharing services. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Enterprise is like their headquarters is in Missouri, and basically they did some type of like agreement with the university where students can rent the car. They
Oh
place it
wow.
on campus, and it's like I think it's like $1 an hour or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so like some of my friends and I we like drive out sometimes, and like sometimes with like when it's like typical rush hour during in LA, like like
Uh,
was it like 6 o'clock ish? Like in
mhm.
St. Louis, like that does not exist at all. And I
Huh.
think something else like I realized is that like I think I feel like after going out of state, like I really appreciate certain things that I have in California that I don't have there, and vice
Mhm.
versa. Like I think like things are a lot like the vibe is a lot like more calm and collected, more like I wouldn't call it rural, but it's not like really city either, like
Yeah.
Missouri. But I think like it's just more a little bit more calming vibes. But then at the same time, like certain cuisines, like for example in Arcadia, there's a lot of like good Asian food. Like over there, like there's not that much good Asian food, so I feel like I took like Asian food for granted a little too much while I was back here. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, especially that last part. Food hits a little bit close. Even for me, I'm in SoCal still, but when you eat cafeteria food or the area, you kind of miss a little bit of home. And I think it's great. Definitely, mentioning rush hour, especially because I'm at USC, so it's like the heart of LA. There's always traffic, but I think it's great that for example, Washington offers you guys that car sharing service. I know some universities they offer that. Like for me at USC, we can use Lyft for free within a 2 mile radius if
Oh
we need it.
wow, that's
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah,
I
there's yeah, it's usually during certain time points, like usually during like probably like 6 p.m. to like 6 in the morning, something like that. But mainly for safety. I mean, you can use it for food and going out and do other things. But yeah, but no, having those services I think is great, and understanding those things as well too. Especially how great it is to have a $1 an hour car sharing service. That'd be awesome. You do that in LA, you'll be charged 5 hours and you probably only went a mile. So yeah, for sure. Anyways, actually, I guess taking a little bit step back away from college first, going back to the college application process. So taking a few years to rewind, going back to your senior year. Um, so I guess first and foremost, just if you could briefly summarize, how was the college application process for you?
Yeah, whoa, that's a good question. I From what I remember, I was just like I think I was just really stressed out, and I think a lot of my peers were also super stressed out. I think like most of the resources of how I understood how the college application process worked is from like like I know like our counselors had like different sessions and stuff like that. I know like some universities would come and do visits at campus and stuff like that. And I think those are definitely helpful to understanding how the college application process worked. But I think at the end of the day, in terms of like writing essays and like seeing like at a point like when comparing yourself to like other people looking at like for example statistics and stuff like that, like it gets a little stressful. And I think like looking back, like I think I would have told myself like calm down a little bit, like don't like I think like someone told me this, I forgot who told me this, but they were saying that basically like if you think you don't have a good chance, like you should still apply anyways, because like if you apply, it's better than the 0% chance of getting in if you don't apply at all. And I was like, that's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
no, yeah,
relaxing a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, no, I actually really like that last advice you gave. Where you said like, even though you think you don't have a good shot, that you should apply anyways, because when you think about it, a lot of those schools, if you let's say you had like a bad GPA compared to what the average was, a school has like an average 3.5 GPA acceptance rate, but you currently have a 3.0. But yeah, when you're doing like the Common App or like Coalition App, whatever application system it is, when you're applying through it, they still let you submit the application regardless of what your scores were. So, as long as you meet those minimum requirements, the school is still going to read your application, because I think that it's saying that, yeah, maybe you're not considered average or, above the average of what the statistics are, but it doesn't mean you don't have a shot of going there. There are plenty of students who are definitely like below those statistics we see online, yet they're still going into college, and you see them doing amazing things, even probably greater than the ones who were above the average. So I think, yeah, definitely taking those chances, even though it may seem like you don't have a chance, it's not completely zero. So yeah, I really like that advice. I think
Yeah.
I want another thing. Yeah,
I'm
another
sorry.
thing I want to. Oh, sorry, you're saying?
No. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
no, all good, all good, all good. So I think another thing I want to touch up on college application is obviously time management. A lot of the former videos I've been doing, everyone's been talking about time management. Having to work things around it. And I knew you pretty well from high school, and you were very involved in a lot of activities. Even still balancing social life and whatnot. So I guess for you, how are you able to manage your time on everything? Like, did you properly manage your time, or what could you have done better?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like in terms of time management, I feel like that is definitely like key. Um, like we mentioned earlier, like still apply no matter what your like numbers and statistics are. Like you're more than a number, but
Mhm.
that's just one part of the step. Like following through and finishing your application is definitely another big key part of it, and also devoting enough time to making sure that you put out a solid application so that like you can still dream big and achieve those dreams, but you need to make sure that you put enough time into that. I think like a lot of people, a lot of the seniors, like when I was a junior, like a lot of the seniors were telling me like make sure you start early. Like I remember hearing that like a lot. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? So I remember like I would look into it like in the like once junior year was over, I started looking into like colleges in the summer, but like just kind of briefly skimming through it, just kind of getting some general ideas of like what I'm looking for, what I'm aiming to do, and stuff like that. And I think like kind of getting some ideas of like I personally for me like I don't think I'm a good writer like in any way, shape, or form. So like I think like for me like just kind of like how I ended up kind of working on it was like I think I overthought too much. I think it's kind of like you look at an essay and I would just recommend like just like a prompt. I would just recommend like looking at it and pretend it's like an interview question and just kind of like go at it. Like how would you answer that in the moment? Like kind of like literally like in an impromptu, like you just go for it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's like I think because like for me, I don't think I'm a good writer, but I think like I can articulate my ideas if I think about it. So like I think like if you're similar to me and you don't think you're a good writer, for example, like I would recommend like if you look at a question, just go at it. Just pretend like someone asked you, how would you respond there? Because I feel like that would be most likely a very genuine answer for how you would respond to something, rather than like overthinking it a lot. Because I know if I overthink something, it's not going to go too well.
Yeah. No, it definitely. I think that it's so important to, definitely stay, like you mentioned, staying calm, try not to overthink because, college applications, it's not black and white. There's no specific right or wrong way to do it, things, and there's no exact way. It's very almost vague and ambiguous sometimes to understand how the entire admission process works. But that being said, it's important to understand that you have to just do your best work, put out whatever you believe will shine you compared to other applicants, and not really worry about like having to overanalyze or criticize things like, I don't know if this question is really supposed to be asking me this. But yeah, that was definitely great. And I guess, other than everything you've already mentioned, I was just wondering, if you could have changed anything about the college application process, if you could have gone back and redid the entire thing. I mean, I guess none of us really want to go back and redo it, but if you could have, redone the entire process, what would you have changed?
Yeah, I think like really just telling myself like relax a little, like calm down, because I think like there's just so much like things go like like everyone's all my peers we were all kind of going through like application process at the same time, and you always hear people talking, and it just there's a lot of like verbal input coming in, and it can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes. And I think I would go back and tell myself like calm down, relax, like if you work hard, like how like if you get out what you put in, so like just like work hard and like aim high, and like whatever happens, everything happens for a reason. Like just relax and let the process do what it does, because sometimes like college applications, as you said earlier, I agree, it's like it's not very black and white. Like sometimes it could be somewhat like a lottery at times.
Yeah,
So like just relax and let the process do its thing. Like if you feel confident in what you put out, like you have nothing to fear.
that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's obviously some great, both advice and, reflection on your pastime. So yeah, obviously, thank you for that. I guess transitioning now, let's go back to talking about college, college lifestyle, and I guess specifically more on your extracurriculars. So I guess, what are some extracurriculars that you're taking a part of? And if you want to go ahead and elaborate on like one or two of them, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite things that I'm doing right now on campus is I'm a tour guide. Uh,
Ooh,
so like being a tour guide, just like in general, like it doesn't have to be like a college tour guide. Just being a tour guide has always been like a bucket list item for me. So so like this past semester, I was basically giving like a tour each week to like a whole bunch of like visitors. I was like a tour captain, so like I was assigning times for all the other tour leaders to kind of give tours as well. And I think it's super interesting because like personally for me, like when I first got on campus, like I think one of the things that I really enjoyed was just kind of exploring campus. Like there's a lot of things of like certain classrooms you can go to and stuff like that. But I think like just kind of exploring campus with my friends and just finding like hidden gems, like we have a law school on our campus, and like I discovered they had like a courtroom, like kind of the ones you see on TV, and I was like, this
Yeah.
is so cool. But then like after doing like being a tour guide, and I got to learn like a lot more hidden gems around campus, and I was like, this is so neat. And like it turns out like that courtroom that I went to go visit, it turns out like undergrads like me, we can even be a part of those courtrooms. Like
Oh, wow.
like they get like undergrads can be like juries for like the law students like mock trials and stuff like that. And I was like, that's super cool. So that's like one of my favorite things to do. So like I always get like asked a lot of like college questions similar to like today as well, like as a tour guide, and it's super interesting. Our campus just recently got a little bit bigger, so like the tour route got a little bit longer, but it's still a nice walk every day. Other than like I feel like that's pretty nice because it's like it's not really like academic focus in terms of like it's not like really like I'm a business school student and it's not really like exactly business. It's just kind of like interacting with people and just like meeting new people every day. Like it's pretty interesting to see people come from like all over like the US. I haven't met anyone out of the country yet, but it's just really cool to see a whole bunch of people coming from everywhere. Other than that, I'm also part of like focusing on like my, because I'm a business student, I was really interested in doing consulting.
Uh-huh.
So we're in like a consulting case competition team. We unfortunately didn't get to have our season this past semester. Usually we compete in the spring. But
Mhm.
in the fall, I did this like pro bono consulting case for um, a, a hospitality company based in San Francisco, where
Mm.
basically they're kind of like an Airbnb, except like
Yeah.
they're in between the Airbnb. So like there's Airbnb and the person who wants to travel, but basically this company uh, is the in between Airbnb and the people. So
Oh, okay.
basically,
So just a mediator.
yeah, they're the mediator. So they
Mhm.
basically kind of, and not really buy, but kind of rent out the property owner's place. And basically they furnish everything, and they're the ones who are corresponding with the traveler. So we were kind of looking into like which cities they should expand into next, because so far there were only in like 4 cities. So we were kind of doing some market research into seeing like what other cities they should expand into. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I actually like how you touched up on something that I was actually going to follow up on you with. How you mentioned that, working as a tour guide, it's not really academic or like, business marketing focused geared towards your major, but more of something for service. And at the same time, indirectly, it's kind of fun because like you mentioned, you gotta tour around school, find hidden places that you've never seen before. I'm pretty, that happens to me a lot too. I'll just be walking around some random place because I need a breather. I'm like, oh wow, we had this fountain. So it's kind of cool, like to definitely, yeah, exploring campus and stuff. But what I want to ask you is, how important do you think it is to have an extracurricular that isn't just academic focused, like having something that's more service or like just for fun based, that's not really focusing on your major or what you plan to do after college?
Yeah, I think like it depends person to person. For me, like I think it's really for me, I think it's really important to have something that's not exactly academic focused or focused on what I'm like what I'm studying. Like
Hmm.
I think it's important. Like I feel like many universities usually have a lot of different clubs to choose from. So like really looking into like what are your hobbies, what are your interests outside of your studies. Like yes, like as we mentioned earlier, like studying something that you're passionate about is definitely good. But everything with moderation is also good. Like you don't want to like have your entire life devoted to one thing unless that's something you definitely want to like. If you enjoy that, then go for it. But like if you have other hobbies and things that you want to explore, like I think like definitely take that opportunity to do that like outside of your academics, because you might be able to learn something new from other people who share your similar interests, or it'll just be like a nice break from academics, just kind of like doing other things that's not exactly related to what you're studying, because studying and like it can be a little overwhelming at times, like studying at the library for like hours and hours, but like doing something that's not exactly what you're studying or academic focus can really be a nice like breather. So whether that be like, I was also part of like my school's like club fencing team for like a very short while, but I didn't have enough time to fit in my schedule this past semester. But I think doing something like that, like whether it's sports or like you can be a tour guide or it's just anything that you find interesting that outside of academics, like I would encourage people to go and look for those options to kind of like see if that's like a niche that they want to be a part of. But like, there's nothing wrong with like doing everything. Like if you want to do something in like, I don't know, like if you want to be like a lawyer, for example, like if you want to do something with like mock trial and like debate and stuff like that, if you really enjoy that, like go for it. Like don't just like explore things just because like, you feel like you need to, but like do it if you have some interest in it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that advice. I think that's definitely awesome. I think, balancing between the academics and everything else. Because, like you mentioned, even though we really enjoy those subjects, there's only so much that we can really do something like, and do other activities that relate to it. Because at some points, I'm pretty sure everyone does have at least one extra side hobby that they're interested in, or, one other skill that they're willing to do, like sports. Many people play sports, and even though they could be committed to studies, they still would like to play a game or two and go into it. And I think, joining a sports intramural team or just even those club teams, you don't have to be a college or pro athlete to play those things. You can play for fun recreationally. So yeah, I think that was definitely some, great advice on that. And I guess, speaking on advice, just to wrap this video up, if you could give advice to high school students, whether it's about the college application process, the college lifestyle, or I mean, just life in general, what would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I mentioned this a lot throughout the video today, but I think like the key thing I would say is just like breathe and relax. Like I think like that's really key because it can be really overwhelming sometimes looking through the college application process. Like it can be a lot. Like I think like breathe and just like be confident, be breathe, relax, and be confident is super important because no one can tell you how high you can dream. So don't let like numbers scare you or don't let what other people are saying deter you from your goals. Like your goals is your goals. Like you can't, like nobody should be able to change that. So I think like being true to yourself, being genuine and like putting out like a solid application, like there's nothing to fear. And but in terms of like what you're looking for, like stuff like that, like I think like it took me a while to kind of find that like I wanted to go to like WashU, for example. I think like devoting some time to kind of looking into like what are your goals, like even if you don't know exactly what you want to study. Like for me, like I knew that like it was fluid to change my majors or take classes at WashU. That was important to me. So like find out like what's important to you. Like if you know like you're like I want to be like X, Y, and Z in the future. Like I know this X and Y and Z program may be a good fit for me. Like definitely look into stuff like that. Like I think doing a good research sets a good foundation for your next steps. Like you don't want to have like a shaky foundation because like if you don't have good research, then what happens is like what happens with a building that has a bad foundation? Like it crumbles,
Exactly.
you know. So yeah, I think like relaxing, being confident is absolutely key. And I think like doing good research will make sure that like wherever you go, you'll be happy in some sense.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I think it's definitely great that you mentioned all that things because, as hectic and, as I guess you can say wild that the college application process is, we do need time to take it slow, relax, just kind of clear our heads because if like I feel like a lot of things we're constantly diving into all those subjects and it just becomes super overwhelming. Our thoughts are become super clouded. We don't. It's kind of hazy. Like you're hearing a lot of input from friends, family, colleagues, and when you're doing the process, you're getting other feedback and whatnot. Everything can become a mess. So I think, yeah, definitely calming down, relaxing, focusing on, I would say not necessarily one thing at a time, but like narrowing, certain aspects and grouping them so that we're not just constantly taking everything all at once, is definitely important to keep in mind. And yeah, obviously, coming to the conclusion of this video, obviously, we want to thank you so much, Martin, for coming out and talking with us. It's definitely great having you. I know how like genuine and honest you are. So I really loved hearing your story and like how much passion you have. And obviously for everyone watching this, I'm sure they'll get a lot of great knowledge and value from it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Christian. I enjoyed talking to you too.